Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2231. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Houston, Texas, with a very special guest by the name of Taylor Keller. Taylor, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have it in gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Hang on, I'm still spinning up that turbo?
Yeah.
All right, ready to go.
All right. Very cool. I love it. So before I give you a proper introduction and we dive into what you're doing, what's one little thing that maybe people don't know about Taylor Keller?
Oh, probably just about everything. Just a guy from California that grew up around cars and motorcycles and been putting together my own little project to release a new supercar for a bit now, and we just released that. So
very exciting. Well, that's why you're here today, so you can tell us all about that. So I'll give you an introduction here, and we'll dive into your world. Taylor Keller is the founder and CEO of Keller Motors, a venture that he describes as an analogue, a revolution. It's a supercar company that he just started, and his first car has just come out called the Seraph. He was born and raised in San Jose, California, and his father got Taylor into RC cars and dirt bikes at a very young age. He spent his youth learning how to work on cars, taking auto classes at local community college, and spent 2 years working on a small street bike racing team. He also built his own racing simulators. Taylor also works for a Nissan Infiniti performance shop in Houston, Texas, and races with the Le Mans Classic sim racing team whenever he gets a chance. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, so give them a little love, buckle up, we'll be right back. Our pets are a big part of our family, and we love to take them everywhere we go, but they can be very hard on your vehicle's interiors. If you add the fall and winter weather, you'll end up with water, mud, snow, and a whole lot more that Fido tracks into your cars. Covercraft offers a wide variety of solutions to protect your vehicle's interior from fall and winter's rough treatment, and Fido's too. Canine cargo area covers are padded for your pet's comfort and provide door-to-door protection. Pet pads have built-in features to keep cargo areas and seats well protected, and they're easy to clean. Covercraft's quality pet solutions cover cargo areas, bucket or bench seats, and protect from the damaging claws, pet fur, hair, mud, moisture, drool from permanently damaging your vehicles. Choose from a variety of styles and covers for almost every vehicle made. And here's a special deal for you Cars Yeah listeners. If you use the code YEAH21 at covercraft.com, you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order. What a deal. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you and making life a lot easier with the pets we love so much. Covercraft. American Collectors Insurance is my go-to for collector car insurance, but did you know they also insure your valuable collections of automobilia and other collectibles? If you're like me, you've invested in a lot of cool collectibles over the years. Those items are valuable, and if you were to lose them in a theft or a fire, well, try to get your normal homeowner's insurance to pay you what they're worth. Good luck with that. American Collectors Insurance provides you with assurance and confidence that your collectibles are fully covered. They insure a lot of items, including automobilia, wine, baseball cards, books, figurines, die-cast models, model trains, glassware, sports memorabilia, toys, and a whole lot more. American Collectors Insurance, they've been protecting us enthusiasts since 1976. They provide you with an agreed value insurance policy backed by a long history of taking care of their clients. Give them a call today for your personal agreed value quote at 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. Tell them you're a friend of mine, Mark Green's here at Cars Yeah. American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. Automotive enthusiasts just like you and me. That's American Collectors Insurance. You've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine here on Cars Yeah for a couple of years now. Well, they're growing. And in 2023, they're going to grow from 4 issues a year to 6. And there's an opportunity here for you to take advantage of this growth. If you go to linkagemag.com and click on the Renew button, if you already subscribed, you can get a great deal. Use the code RENEW6 for 1 year, and you'll get 6 issues for the price of 4, or type in Renew 12 for 2 years, where you also have a great savings. Plus, they'll even throw in a free linkage hat. How cool is that? The publisher of Linkage is Donald Osborne. He's been a guest multiple times here on Cars Yeah. He's become a good friend of mine, and I'll tell you, Linkage Magazine is one of those newer magazines that you're going to want to get. It's all about experiences, opinions, and values. It's a wonderful publication, something I look forward to getting. And now that I'm going to be getting 6 a year, even more special. So go to linkagemag.com. Again, use the code Renew6 or Renew12 to get that special deal. Do it before December 31st, 2022, so that in 2023, you'll get 6 issues of Linkage Magazine instead of 4. So, Taylor, we are back. So I want to dive a little deeper into your world. You're a young guy, so what you're undertaking is super grand with this supercar. A lot of supers in there that you're putting together. But I'd love for you to give us a little backstory of what led up to Keller Motors, and then we're going to dive into what this Seraph is all about. So buckle up, take the wheel.
So I've been crazy about cars just since I could crawl, really. I've spent a long time watching, Top Gear and a bunch of other car shows, and I started to notice that automatic transmissions and these paddle shifters were making their way into supercars. And that was kind of when I got the first little tinge of like, that's not right. This isn't going to go in a great direction. And I guess that's kind of where this came from, is seeing those automatics creep their way into supercars. And sure enough, it's kept going down a more and more digital route with supercars. And I'm seeing, from my perspective, cars that are getting impressively fast, but somehow, in a lot of ways, kind of boring to drive. And so I put those two together and just decided that I wanted to bring out an offering that was really analog, raw, back to manual transmissions, a little bit more vintage racing car or 80s 90s supercar style in a more modern market. And fortunately enough, I had some green flags as we were bringing this thing to market. More and more resto mods like Singer and stuff were popping up and showing that there is indeed an analog market out there. So we're just trying to bring a cool new offering to the market and see if anyone's interested in what we've created.
This is quite interesting because years ago I was at the Ferrari factory. I was with someone who was picking up the last 599. And at that point, they were right in a transition period, they being Ferrari, of not making manual gearboxes anymore. And the guy I was with said, well, I want a manual. So they custom made a manual for him. They weren't going to do it, but they put it in that last 599. And I was at the factory and I said, what are you doing? This is Ferrari. Yeah, the gated shifter, you're not going to make manuals anymore? And he said, our customers don't want them. And I sat there and I went, well, who the heck are your customers? and he actually said, well, I think they're old guys that are tired of shifting. And I kind of went, whoa, that's quite interesting. But I think you're right, Taylor. You start to see what Singer's done, and my goodness, their facility, their new manufacturing facility, the cars they're putting together. And I've interviewed, dozens of people that are doing a Singer-esque, I'll just put it that way, because he kind of started the reimagining thing with different types of cars. So I want to talk a little bit more about your vehicle, because this Seraph, how do you describe this to somebody, since we can't visually show them what the Seraph is?
I might invite the comparison of a modernized Group C racer for the road.
Okay.
I would invite the comparison to something like a Ferrari F40 LM. Not saying that it's going to be that heroic and legendary, but it is definitely our best effort, at something like that.
Okay.
So it's powered by a Nissan V6 with a single giant turbocharger, putting out about 700 horsepower, weighs a little over 2,000 pounds.
Wow.
This is a high downforce body as well. So at speed, we're at 150 miles an hour. We're expecting north of 2,000 pounds of downforce. It's very much set up for handling performance. We have no interest in top speed. 0 to 60 will be pretty quick, but it's really not something that we're interested in either. It's very much set up to be it's a car you can take to the track and just kind of embarrass some lap times. But at the same time, it's set up to work on the road, which funny enough, we found was a pretty natural result of short gear ratios and high downforce. I think that's going to work really well on the road, believe it or not.
So how would you describe the look of this vehicle to someone that hasn't seen it yet?
I would say something like a Group C car that smashed into a spaceship.
And I'll tell you, listeners, you can go to Taylor's show notes page on the Cars Yeah website. I have a picture of this thing there. I think he described it right. Yeah, spaceship is right up there. And Group C, okay, I get that. I just got through having last week a guest on the show that has written the definitive history of the Porsche 962. And you think about those Group C race cars and what those things were all about, and especially back in the day. But your car brings that into the future, if you will. Is that a good way for me to describe that?
That's phenomenal, actually, because it's very heavily influenced by the 962. I spent a long time in simulation stuff studying all different types of historic racing cars, and the 962 was the one that I really wanted to chase after. And that's where we got the idea for high downforce, lots of turbo lag, and most importantly, a rearward weight bias in a mid-engine car.
Very interesting. Seraph, who is the author of this, it's a huge 1,400-page 3-volume set on the 962 and the Group C cars and the history of all that. You guys should get together. But I think this is fascinating. Now, will the body be carbon fiber? Is that the plan?
Yes, it's a carbon fiber monocoque.
Wow. This is quite an undertaking for a young guy like you. I mean, very bold. My hat's off to you because holy cow. And I'll tell you another thing you said that I like is we're not so worried about top speed and 0 to 60. I really think with the onset of electric vehicles that the whole concept of how to get there quick, I'm not saying that's not important, is really kind of starting to fade away. Because who really cares? I mean, the whole thing is about getting on it while you're already going, getting around things, getting up to speed. But I think the world's a changing. And for a young guy like you, what's your take on these changes that are happening? I know you touched on it a little bit. Maybe you could dive a little deeper into this, bringing back a bit of a sense of analog world in a world that's going EV and autonomous. And dare I say that word?
Oh, yeah, we don't like that word around the office. I think these electric cars and everything like that are coming by and large. I think there's going to be a way that they do just mandate these things in. I think that it's apparent that they don't seem to work very well on the market. And I think that's why they're going to have to mandate them in, but they seem determined to do so. The way we've gone at this thing is really with little regard for the performance numbers, and it's entirely focused around just the experience of it. And it naturally has good performance numbers because of the experience that we've built.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, it's a very bold endeavor, and my hat's off to you. I think it's quite tremendous. When you reached out to me and said, hey, we need to talk, and I looked at the picture you sent and I went, what the heck is that? Holy cow. Who is this guy? And so, you got my curiosity up. So I'm really happy to bring this to my listeners so they can learn more about what you're doing. At what point in time did you make the decision to take this on?
Well, like I said, the idea kind of started brewing when I first saw paddle shifters really making their way into Ferraris and things like that. It was about 7 years ago or so that I started to get serious about it and start putting pen to paper and developing it through a little bit more thoroughly. And then it was about 3 to 5 years ago that I started assembling the team kind of one by one through some clever connections, a couple of people reaching out to me, and it started to kind of grow. So the last 5 years or so has really started to take shape into more of what it is today.
It's really amazing to me how many people are doing their own thing right now. It's something, back in the old, let's say the real old days, 50s, 60s, you got hot rodders building hot rods and customizing cars and doing all of that thing. Of course, they didn't have the technology we have today. And you kind of saw that go away a little bit, except for certain groups maybe doing it. But these days, there are so many people doing so many unique things that it's really kind of fun. It's kind of like a reliving of the hot rod generation. Is that a fair way to think about how well things are going nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, with the advent of technology and internet, there's plenty I could gripe about for it, but it gives us a wonderful ability to take on more endeavors that we couldn't have 10, 20, 50 years ago. Just the amount of resources and information and connections that you have through it is unbelievable.
It's amazing how many people you can reach out to and collaborate with and find. I've had some people on the show that have built, I guess what I call modern day supercars, and during the COVID time period with teams that never even met each other. from all over the world, engineers and
Yeah.
technicians and designers. And my goodness, it's a completely different time and place. I like to talk about what I call our driving inspirations with my guests, people that were inspiring to them, influential in many ways. Is there somebody like that in your life?
I'd have to say the one guy that really sparked this thing off and inspired me in a good way was I actually managed to meet Aiden de Cadenet in college. We went to the same college together and sparked a bit of a short but good friendship. And he was the one who kind of turned me on to the Porsche 962 because his godfather was Derek Bell. And so I was like, okay, what's this thing all about? And that was where I really started to clarify the vision of what I wanted this thing to be. Other than that, I'm not particularly big on heroes and things like that. I mean, I have a ton of respect and admiration just for all the pioneers of motorsport and supercars and everything like that. It's hard to pick anyone out beyond that.
Well, interesting person. And you mentioned Derek Bell, which goes back to my guest that collaborated a bit with Derek. And in fact, he's one of the many people he's having sign these books or doing limited edition books of them. And I was fortunate enough to meet Derek Bell. He was here in the state of Washington as part of a Porsche talk that we had. And one of the people here has a 917. So they brought it over. And then at the time, a friend of mine had two 962s that he actually, he actually raced them. It was Bruce Levin. He had a racing team back in the day, and he had Bayside Racing. And he had people racing his cars that were like very famous name people that ran his car, Hurley Haywood and others that were drivers for him, Bobby Rahal. Now, this was back in the day, but so they brought all those cars together, had Derek there talking about them. It was quite interesting, but I love it. That's very cool. We'll take a short break. We'll thank our sponsors. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the challenges you face because doing something like this has got to have some challenges involved with it. So some learning lessons, let's call it that way. So we'll be right back. Fall is here, and you know what that means. Time to put a good coat of protection on your vehicle. I'm teamed up with AutoGeek, and they've been the leading source of auto detailing products, accessories, and expert knowledge for more than 20 years. What started back in 1997 as a small mail-order catalog company grew into a multi-website-based e-commerce store, and that's what they are today. With a large online presence on its own website featuring close to 100 different brands, AutoGeek has grown to be the largest car care retailer in the country. AutoGeek's wholesale program serves accounts in over 30 countries, and its retail sector ships worldwide. If you want to protect your vehicle this fall, and you should, go to autogeek.net for the best product selection on the internet today and technical support. Autogeek.net is where I go for my detailing needs. That's autogeek.net. Did you know that less than 3% of all automotive technicians in the U.S. are women? You may not be surprised, but you should be concerned because our country is facing a massive technician shortage right now. Skilled, qualified techs are in high demand, and we need young men and women to consider these viable career paths. Cars Yeah knows that women make great techs. I've interviewed a lot of them, so we support the nonprofit Tech Force Foundation and its Women Tech Rocks initiative to ensure women see themselves in this profession, the industry, and the workforce. Learn more at techforce.org today. So taking on something like this, you said you've started this 5, 6, 7 years ago. This takes time to put something like this together. So I'd love for you to talk about some of the challenges and what great learning lessons they were, even though they might have been very painful to go through at the time.
One of the biggest initial challenges was my ambition was a bit high, and I was trying to bite off a bit more than I could chew. So I was reaching out to investors and trying to put together this big, impressive business model and everything. And it really wasn't getting far with it, and was also doing this back in the Silicon Valley where just all anyone wanted to talk about was electric robo-taxis. And I was just not having it. Beyond that, it's been, pushing forward with this idea that no, top speed and these metrics aren't all that important, that we need to kind of get back to the basics. Figuring out some of the quirks with the engine has been a bit interesting. We're still a little back and forth between two engines and which way we want to go. And ultimately now the big challenge that we're getting in front of is how do we get the first one of these things built? We still would either need to, raise some initial capital to get the first one out, Finding partners hasn't been terribly difficult because there's so much passion around analog cars like this because there's so few of them and they're so exciting to drive. Another big challenge we've been dealing with is going through the bureaucracy and the legal process of building an all new car and putting it on the road. And we bounced around with different strategies and costs to go through all the regulations and emissions testing and all that kind of stuff. And then I found out that there's a company called Local Motors that found a really clever loophole where we can fully build the car and put it on the road, register it, everything as simple as you'd imagine. And if we have the customer come in and participate with the build, it counts as a kit car.
Well, I was going to suggest that because I know people that build these, and that's how they work within. The word loophole I've always kind of disliked a little bit because it sounds like you're being shady. It's not loopholes. It's really the way the rules are structured that enable you, let's change loophole to enabler, enable you to create things. And I know some laws were passed just in the last few years when it comes to cars being built. As an example would be my friend Henry Reisner, who used to have Intermechanica up in Canada, just north of me here. They would build the bodies and chassis and everything, and then they would bring them across the border and then install the engines and transmissions down here because there was this one little rule that said they couldn't bring a car into this country that was fully manufactured without all the other, very technical sides of crash testing and all this kind of thing. However, it fell into that, let's call it a kit car. And I almost hate to use that term because kit car has some connotations, but the world's changed around that whole concept. Would you agree?
Yeah, and that's absolutely. And we realized that actually turns into a strength for us because it gives us an opportunity and an excuse to invite the customer down and be a part of the build and see the car and see how mechanically simple it is and everything like that. And yeah, it does therefore register as a kit car. And I've got to say, I know there's a lot of taboos, or not taboos, but
I think it's because kit cars for a while were thought of as copycats or fakey-doos, and I'll give an example. I had one. I had a Beck Spider. Chuck Beck built the 550 replicas, and I had one because I couldn't afford a real 550 Spider. This one was built by John Wilhoit, so it had a bigger engine. It used all Porsche parts for the car except for the body and chassis. Even had a speedster engine that he'd modified. So the kit car concept used to be like copycat, but that's different now.
And it because a lot of them were not only copycats, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but they were also just like rebodying, Volkswagen Beetles and things like that really just gave them kind of a bad reputation.
And with kind of funky, cheap fiberglass body.
Yeah. And so nowadays, looking at the replicas and kit cars that are out there today, I'm shocked that they're not more popular. There's some amazing cars out there.
Right.
To me, it blows my mind that anyone would buy, half these modern sports cars and supercars out there, considering what you can get from a kit car company for half the money or less. But they do also have the connotation of being, more difficult to deal with registration, and you've got to have a mechanic that you trust to put the thing together. And then what happens when something goes wrong and all that kind of stuff. So we're going after that by just baking it all into the business model and just covering you with a really good warranty and, effectively still manufacturing the whole car there with you.
Well, and using a reliable power source like you are, you've got that covered. It's, I'm going to say something that probably raise some eyebrows of listeners, but if you go back to the McLaren F1 street car, they put a BMW engine in that thing.
Yeah.
And people sometimes forget that, like, what? A BMW engine? Now, okay, granted it was modified, but that's how they got around having to completely create their own power plant for the cars. Take something that's reliable. German power plant, that's good. Japanese power plant, very reliable. So use that technology, but then wrap it in this special package is pretty cool.
Yeah, and not only that, is to our benefit that modern engines are getting more and more complicated. So it gives us, even more reason to go back to a bit of a older engine, which is much more abundant and affordable, which keeps things simpler and cheaper and just wins all the way across the board.
Well, if you had a bucket list or a crystal ball to look out in the future, do you have a point out there on the calendar of when you want to have that first car done?
Man, I want to get one out as soon as possible. We are ready to go. We're just looking for the resources to put the first one together, and whether or not that comes as an order or an investment through a development vehicle, we're still not entirely set on which route we're going to take and kind of which way God provides. But
fair enough.
We when that happens, we expect to have one out within about a year. And I'm really hoping that that's next year, that we get a car out there and can start doing some shakedowns and some testing and maybe deliver late next year or early the following.
Very cool. Sounds great. So let's talk about special cars in your life. Is there a car that, other than this one, of course, but a car in your past that really stands out? And if so, tell us a story about that ride.
I had two 300ZXs, 91 and 92s, I think, that were just wonderful. I had the first one for, I don't remember, maybe 2-3 years or so, until I crashed it on my way to work, getting a little loose in the back end, as you do. And I couldn't find anything else that I wanted more than that, so I just bought another one. And that kind of got me started on Nissans. And now I've got an Infiniti G35 that I'm both rebuilding as, my own vehicle and doing some sort of piggyback research and development for our car, since it's using the same engine, which has been a lot of fun. That one, I bought it, didn't realize that it had a pretty bad valve cover leak. I knew it was leaking. I didn't realize how bad it was. So 2-3 weeks later or so, it ran out of oil and spun a bearing.
Ouch.
And right as I was trying to move out of California and get this venture moving a bit more. So I had to stop everything, rebuild that engine. And just about as soon as I got back together, I just hopped in the car and booked it and came out to Texas. And I was so excited to get out here driving that thing that I went from San Jose to Houston door to door nonstop, just food and gas.
Oh my gosh. Wow. A little like a half cannonball.
Yeah, a bit of an endurance driver, if you will.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. Well, another California escapee. So
yeah,
there you go. Yeah, many people going to Texas. A lot of friends of mine too, as well. So great place to run a business. So I'm going to be your car psychologist. If you were reincarnated as a vehicle, this isn't what you want to be, though, Taylor. This is how you perceive yourself in a vehicle. What would you be and why?
If I get a little fancy with it, maybe like a Group B Lancia Delta Integrale.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. And that begs the why.
Why? Well, it's very, first of all, it's very heavily turbocharged, which I seem to be. And there's a lot of things where I'm kind of slow to start off. As a late bloomer, it kind of takes me a minute to really get things going. But once that turbo kicks in, I can really take off and surprise myself sometimes with what I accomplish.
A little turbo lag going on there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had a 930 for about 13 years, so I know all about turbo lag.
It's also a very rugged car. I mean, it's meant to go over pretty much any terrain within reason, and I kind of the same way. Just whatever comes at me, I can just kind of keep on plowing forward and roll with the punches, if you will.
Oh, well, that's a pretty cool vehicle, and of course, Lancia, one of those wonderful names that goes back to all sorts of rally racing and history, and it's one of those cars that never really was over here much, but boy, in Europe, you say the word Lancia and Group B, and especially that car, man, that's iconic.
Yeah,
very cool. I love it. I watch those rally races, and it scares me to death. I don't know how those guys do that.
Well, there's a reason they stopped the Group B races.
Well, yeah, a little too fast. Yeah, it's kind of like Can-Am. It's like, we're getting a little out of control here, guys. This is way too much power for the road. So is there a great book that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, gosh. Big fan of the Bible. Always start there.
Okay, there you go.
How to Win Friends and Influence Others by Dale Carnegie. It also made a big impact on my life. Just being able to think about things from other people's perspectives and being as helpful and kind as you can, and be surprised on what helping someone and understanding their point of view can do for you even.
That's one of those books that is just, it's a reread every year. It's a great book to have on your shelf to just keep. It's amazing how some of these books like that one that was written so long ago just keeps working no matter what the environment. It's a great book. Yeah, bought copies for both my kids when they went off to college. So I wonder if they read those. I should ask them that. I think so. They seem to be doing pretty well. They don't call them for money, so that's a good thing. So something worked out well. So let's go on the ultimate drive. And I'm an enabler, as you know, as a Cars Yeah listener. I enable my guests to do whatever they'd want in any kind of car with anybody. So here's the deal. I'm going to provide any vehicle. You can go anywhere you'd like, and you can take anybody with you, even somebody who's not with us anymore, which opens up the world of opportunity. So what does the ultimate drive look like for a guy like Taylor Keller?
Oof. Well, if I could bend the rules a bit,
okay, I'll let you.
I would really like to put on, a track day, open track day event with this car we've developed, have a handful of them there, and just let a whole bunch of people just experience them, and then hear from, nearly all of them basically about what the experience was like and how much fun they had and all that.
I like that. Yeah, I see you're going to make me be the investor here. Nicely done, my friend. You're a pretty smart guy.
Or worse, I'll make you the passenger.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I have a rule in life because I've been the passenger in 2 race cars on a track and both were crashed. And that was the end. I'm not doing a third one because,
oh, wow.
One of them ended up upside down. So, no, I don't get in. The only way I go on a track is if I'm driving. That's the rule. So if I'm going to back this venture of yours, I'm going to be driving the Seraph, okay?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I suppose if I was to fit a little bit more into that box, I would take an F40 with Jonathan Rumi.
Okay. Why Jonathan?
Because he's a star of the hit new series, The Chosen, and he's just such an interesting guy. I'd love to hear more about his backstory and what his life has been like and what it's like, playing the role in this new show, and just to kind of, he seems like just such a great guy to be around and get some life advice from, frankly.
It's interesting. Nobody's ever mentioned him, which is somebody new, which is cool. But I don't think you're going to hear much if you guys are in an F40, because I have driven one of those and it's not so bad at low speeds. But when you start standing on that thing, it's like, well, it's an F1 car. I mean, you don't hear anything. So you're going to have the conversations before you go out on the track to learn anything from Jonathan, because that thing's a screamer.
Yeah, well, I'm not always the best planner. You've got a point there.
Okay. Well, that's cool. But I like the idea of an open track day where we put a bunch of Seraphs down on the track and bring a bunch of people there to get their impressions. Let's bend the rules a little further here. If you could pick 2 or 3 or 4 people to drive the Seraph, who would they be? Would they be race car drivers?
Well, I would love to hear what Derek Bell thinks of it, because if I can get him to feel like he's in a pretty familiar car, that would be a huge landmark.
That would be cool.
Gosh, who else? Aiden DeCadenet, of course, and give him a little credit for inspiring this thing just through kind of meeting and chatting with him. Oh, Matt Farah would be great. I spoke with him a little bit earlier when this was a couple years back, and this is still kind of brewing. And it was so funny. I told him the idea that this was to put it in terms of a 962 on the road. And it wasn't about a week later that he actually was driving a 962 on the road. And in that video, he was talking about how kind of absurd it is as a road car. And so I'd really love to see what he thinks of the finished product going from that and his input on that.
I like it. Very, very cool. I was lucky to have Matt as a guest on the show a few years back. So there you go. He's done really well for himself. Well, you've taken us on a fun ride today, and I love this venture. Very bold, very brave, very cool. Before I let you go, could you share maybe some words of inspiration, wisdom, or a success quote with our listeners?
Yeah, I would say just, whatever you really feel you're being called to, whatever you're really passionate about in life, do your best to make that happen, and just kind of keep on it, keep trying it. Don't necessarily throw away your whole career, especially if you haven't figured it out or whatever, but whatever keeps you up at night, try, no matter what people say about it, no matter what, direction a market is going or anything. Put your best effort out there and see how far you can go. And I think you'll surprise yourself. I sure have.
Great advice. Exactly. And I like your advice too. Don't throw everything away and bet the farm. Have a runway out there, have some savings in the bank to cover yourself so you don't end up digging a hole too deep that you can't crawl out of. But I like that. It's a great way to go through life. How can people learn more about Keller Motors?
You can follow our social media, follow #analogue revolution. You can check out our website, keller-motors.com.
I'll put links to all of these on Taylor's show notes page of the Cars Yeah website, so you can check it out. You can go and look at the photo of the car that we'll have there on his show notes page, so you can see what we're talking about, but better yet, follow him. And, who knows? He might be building a car for you one day. So very cool. Taylor, thanks for being so generous today with your time and sharing this magnificent venture that you're doing. I wish you the best in the new year so we can get these cars out on the road. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road. Hopefully in a Seraph.
Hopefully. Thanks so much. It's been my pleasure, Mark.
This has been fun. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.